Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents on why they love being in Flagler County. So today I'm super excited to have my guest Chris with me today. Chris, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Well, we know each other through our mutual friend, Rachel Dawson, and she mentioned that she had a journalist friend. I was like, that is amazing. It also means like my interview skills are being put to the test by like actual like experts on the field. So it's all a little, it's always a little bit nerve-wracking, but I appreciate your time and I'm really excited to learn more about what you do. So I'd love for you to kind of start off. What is your story like? How did you come to Flagler Beach, Flagler County? What was your journey like?
So I'm originally from San Diego, California. I only lived there for the first few years of my life. And then when I was a kid, my parents moved us to St. Augustine.
Hmm.
So I got to live there for a few years. And then after that, we moved to Palm Coast in 2004. So I've been a resident of Flagler County for going on 20 years.
Wow.
And just in 2022, I moved to Flagler Beach with my lovely girlfriend, Erin, and I've been living here ever since. But yeah, I mean, I've considered myself a near lifelong resident of Flagler County. I've seen it change just tremendously, as anyone who's lived here a while knows. I mean, I like to go by the amount of Publixes we have as a unit of measurement. I moved here in the one Publix era. I think we're
Okay.
like six or so now. So
Are
yeah,
we?
it's a very, very different place from when I first moved here.
Oh yeah, I think we are. I'm counting them in my head, and that would make sense. That's crazy. But yeah, I feel like 20 years. I consider anyone here who's been here for like 4 years a veteran at this point because there's so many new people coming in. Like I've only been here like 2 years. So I'm like, yeah, if you've been here for like 3, 4 years, I'm like, yep, you've seen everything. Um, so just really quick, I mean, I know you said that you mentioned the Publixes, but I've talked to a few people who have been here for like 20 years. They mentioned when they first came or when they were first a kid that like they genuinely only had like one stoplight in Flagler, in Palm Coast. How has that change been for you? Like what kind of were your thoughts as it's kept on growing? Did you ever see it coming? Were you like, oh, okay, this is happening now?
Yeah, so when I moved here, it was only 5 years after Palm Coast was incorporated as a city back in 1999. And so it was very much in the infancy of, becoming its own city, finding its identity, figuring out, what's the long-term plan going to be. And I mean, I remember when I lived in Palm Coast, it was in the Z section, which is toward the southern end of the town. And back then, you would drive out if you just came up Altair to 100. There was hardly anything there. I mean, there was the neighborhoods, but the Walgreens wasn't there. The Target wasn't there. Everything around the Target wasn't there. You had Flagler Palm Coast High School was
Hmm.
about the only big thing. And I mean, the whole concept of town center, I mean, I remember when I was a kid when that was really kind of first announced that they were going to be doing something with that. I mean, I mean, Palm Coast Parkway is a little bit more built up than it is, or than the other end was at that time. But I mean, it really did feel like kind of a small, sleepy town. I mean, it's always been demographically a little on the older side compared to the surrounding area. And and so with that, you're not getting a lot of big flashy things opening up. Like you're not like a music venue or a bunch of a bunch of clubs or something like you'd expect in like a St. Augustine, which is a whole lot younger, a college town.
Right.
Um, and just to see how, oh my gosh, it's just been exponential. And I think in the last 5 to 10 years, it's growing at a much faster rate than it was in the years before that. I think it's only going to get faster. And clearly, I attended the Palm Coast Mayor David Alphin's State of the City last week, and he was talking about how it's all westward now. West of
Mhm.
US 1 is about to get built up really fast. So depending on how you see it, it's either a really exciting or really scary or intimidating period for Palm Coast. But so far, I think there's reason to be optimistic.
Yeah, I had a friend who came on here and she'd been here her whole life and she's like, I feel like we really made it. She's like, the first thing she's like, when we had the Chipotle put in, She's like, that's when I knew like it was getting big, like it was getting serious.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was like, that would make sense.
Yeah.
But that's super fun to hear people's, how people saw the town being built up. Like I can't imagine like where I'm from a suburb in Michigan. To me, when I was a kid, it felt really built up already. But going back now, it's like tenfold to that. And it's not necessarily the same because it was already built up, but it's still insane to like drive out and be like, oh, I remember when there was nothing here, and now it's like we call it Restaurant Row over there. So it's like just to give you an idea of like how much that changed. That sounds crazy, but it's
Yeah.
super fascinating to hear. So I would love for you to also share a little bit about Ask Flagler. So you mentioned to me that you are a co-founder of that. And then I mentioned, you're a journalist. So I'd love for you to share the story of that. Like how did you come up with the idea? Like this is what I wanted to do, and this is what I wanted to start it with.
Yeah, so the original idea came from my friend Joey Santos Jones, and he and I knew each other like we were friends, but we weren't incredibly close or anything. But he reached out to me about coming on board with a new local news website that he was wanting to start. And this was in summer 2020, like
Oh, okay.
early COVID, when there was a real demand for information about
Right.
and local information too. Like you can only draw so much from the national stats and the statewide stats. So he approached me to come on board with that. And I mean, candidly, I did not have a background in journalism before this. Um, I did not go to school for it. I never really saw it as a career I'd want to go into, but I hopped on board because he told me I could write about things that were important to me, that I wanted to get more, like, have more people know about. And in the time since then, I mean, the response from the community has just been incredible. Um, I mean, I've put my absolute heart and soul into it. And these days, I'm the managing editor. 99.9% of the content you see on the site is going to be written by me. Um, and the response has been incredible. We blew up big around 2021 when Palm Coast had the special mayoral election when the
Oh,
previous mayor resigned, and you had all of a sudden in 2 months we're going to elect a new one, and covering that cycle. I mean, it was exponential at that point. We got a whole lot more readership, a lot more eyes on us, and to this day, I still pride our site on being the I think it's the best in the county. But I do my absolute best to write, to be thorough, to be informative, to be timely, and to be as straightforward as unbiased as I possibly can. And based on the response we've gotten, I think I must be doing at least a kind of an okay job of that because everything's still going great.
yeah. Oh, that's so awesome to hear. And I loved what you mentioned of that the reason you guys started this was because you needed local facts. Because I think it's hard to look at those national statistics, the news, and you go, great, it's good to know this, but how does it affect me? How is this going to affect my county? How is it going to affect where I live? Which are all very valid questions to ask when you're, especially during COVID, when you're hearing so much things all at once, and then you have no choice but to like soak it in. And you're like, I don't know what applies to me and what doesn't. Like, what can I help with? What do I need to so it's really great that that's how you guys started. And then I had no idea about the 2021 mayoral election because I wasn't here for that. So it's really fascinating to hear that that's really where you guys blew up and being able to give those facts to the community, and hopefully they made their decision that they love. Um, but yeah, so that's super awesome. So I mean, what were you doing before journalism or Ask Flagler?
So the last job I had before that was I worked with the Florida Forest Service
Hmm.
for about 6 months. So you can see completely different realm.
Yeah.
I hadn't really gotten into a career before that because I was only 22
Oh
when
yeah.
we started the website. I had just kind of been like job to job
Mm-hmm.
as young people do. Before that, it was like Publix, like just
Yeah.
so not like nothing that was in like the field that I wanted to get into, which I was even still figuring out what that was. And so, yeah, it was one where I was not about to figure out on my own that journalism is where I meant to be. So I'm incredibly blessed that I got that call from him,
Hmm.
and it did not take long to realize, like, yeah, this is what I love to do.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know writing is can seem very intimidating to get into it as a practical field, especially if it's something that's only like a side hobby, like not even a full-time hobby, it's like a side time hobby. And you're like, oh, I have to like people are gonna read it and like perceive it. That's like a scary thought, at least for me, when I
Yeah,
write.
100%. Because people will like when you cover local issues, like people are making major decisions possibly based on what they read on your site. Like you have the responsibility of like people are voting based on this. They're deciding
Right.
where to spend their money. They're deciding where to like whether or not they want to invite their relative to come move here. You know, you have to definitely keep your mind on the fact that like what you write does matter. It affects the community, and that's a lot of obviously a lot of harm can come with that if you don't take that seriously. But I see it more as a chance to do a lot of good.
Yeah. And I think I can definitely tell that you take it seriously and that's something that you take close to heart, which I think a lot of people when they read, hopefully there's so much out there that they're able to discern what is genuine and what isn't, but it's still hard always. But regardless, clearly you guys are very active with the Flagler community and getting out there talking to the people. What would you recommend for maybe newbies in the Flagler area on maybe events they can go to, groups they can join, or anywhere they can kind of put themselves out there with the community?
Yeah, so a really great one that we have right here in Flagler Beach. There's First Friday every month, which is it's kind of like it's sort of like a block party, sort of amusement
Yeah.
kind of day. I don't know if you've been before, but they get like a live band out there. There's vendor booths all over the place, and the whole thing is completely free to attend unless you want to get something from a booth. And it's just jam packed with people who are in good spirits. There's good vibes. You're right there on the beach. And then beyond that, especially where Palm Coast comes in, is I'm a big outdoorsman myself. I love fishing, I love kayaking, I love hiking. And Palm Coast has an absolutely incredible network of parks and walking trails. Waterfront Park, I think, is probably the most scenic of them. Princess Place Preserve is really good if you want to be like more in nature itself. Um, Linear Park is a popular one. Lehigh Trail is a good straightforward, just kind of walk straight kind of deal. So, if you're someone who likes to get outdoors and get some vitamin D, I'd say there's you can't go wrong with any of the trails around here. So those would be the ones that jump to my mind for that.
Yeah. Oh, those are so beautiful. Yesterday, my friend was on the podcast and she was telling me all about Lehigh Trail, and I think it's like very close to where I live. So I definitely need to go check that out. And I know Holland Park is also really popular
Holland Park is
amongst
great. Yeah,
people. I just recently like I knew of it, but I had no idea it was actually like it was full of stuff. I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I had no idea. It's one of those things you have to go out there and see for yourselves. Also, First Friday, typically, and I'm not saying any promises, but usually the Humane Society or like the animal shelters there, they always have dogs there. So if any of you are dog lovers, I know they're always hanging out there most of the time. I'm not making any promises.
yeah. And there's
Um,
there's there's going to be a dog surfing contest coming up this summer here.
yes, I heard someone talking about that. Do you know the details on that? Because he mentioned it. And I was like, do you have the details? He's like, I don't have no idea. We just showed up one day and it was there. I was like, oh my God, I
Definitely
need to
check out
go.
AskFlagler.com for that as I'm searching it right now.
Perfect plug.
Yeah,
Check
you
out
type if you just type in dog surfing or type in like hang 8 on our site, you can get the details. But there you go. It's June 8th in Flagler Beach.
Okay.
It is set up by the current mayor of the town and one of the other city commissioners. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It's dog surfing. It last year there was like 1,000 or 2 people out there. It made like national news.
Whoa.
It's a pretty crazy event, but it's one if you're a dog lover, like you can't miss this. It's
Or
pretty
if you're
awesome.
just amused by animals, I feel like you don't have
Yeah.
to hang out with the dogs, but it's always fun to see dogs surfing. Um,
Oh, yeah, it speaks for itself.
well, Chris, thank you so much for the time today. I really appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun, and it's so great to hear about Ask Flagler and how you guys are growing and how you help the community. I think that's really important that we have so many local places that people can go to and get facts that matter for them at the moment. So again, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it, and thank you to anyone listening. I will see you all next time.